Hey guys, and welcome to part one of the 5-part series. Today we are going to be talking about Ortho4XP, one of the most talked about subjects on Facebook and the forum, and for most people, one of the most headache-inducing programs out there. But today we are going to try and make that simplified for you guys. So one of the biggest things that I see people having a problem with is where do I download Ortho4XP? So let's get that done first. So what you're going to do is head over to the xplane.org forums, and we're going to go to form. And if we scroll all the way down here to Ortho4XP, you can click on any one of these subjects that are started by Oscar. He is the creator of Ortho4XP. The link to the download for it is in his signature. So if we just click on here, you can see Oscar is the starter of this topic, and there are a bunch of links down here for Ortho4XP. The latest version is 1.30. Some people say, okay, which one do I get here? Which one do I get? If you're on Windows, we're going to be grabbing the Windows binary package 411 for 1.30. This is the one I'm going to get today because this is what I'm using in Windows. The other two here, this is the last version. And then I believe this one here is the one you would use for Mac if you were using that. So let's click on this. This is going to bring us over to Oscar's Google Drive where we will be downloading it. So you can see here, we're not going to see a preview, no problem. Download it anyway because there's no viruses in this file. And we're going to let this download here. Now you do need 7-zip or 9-zip to open this, so just keep that in mind. And it is finished downloading, so we can close all these windows here. So now let's go over to our download window, and we're also going to open this one here for the time being. So what we're going to do is we will unzip this, and I just downloaded 9-zip for this, so I'm going to select my download folder as the main one, and let's extract this. So this does take a couple minutes to do. While this is doing this, let's talk about what we're going to be doing in this video today. So we're going to get this installed, started up, show you how to download a tile, and I will stop there and say, okay, if you don't want to go any further than this, this is how you do it. And then from there, we'll be going over the settings that I use to create tiles, the different options that you have in Ortho. But like I said, we'll just go over the simple settings first. People that just want to download this and create tiles and call it a day. So it is not as hard of a program to use as some people think. You just kind of have to um, basically just follow what somebody did. And that's why I'm making this video here because a lot of people, even though they follow videos, they're still having problems getting things set up and whatnot. So, and what I'm going to show you here today, this is the way that I do it. You can do it other ways, other people do it other ways. This is the way that I do it, and I find that it works best. So that's how we're going to leave it. So this is done here. Now Ortho4XP, so we're at the main folder. Now my G drive on my computer, you can see up here, I have Ortho4XP USA because I'm only going to be doing the United States Ortho. So I do have a separate drive, and that's how I'm going to be showing you how to set this up today, is if you have Ortho on a separate drive, which I do suggest because once you get hooked, before you know it, you're going to have 5, 6, 8 terabytes of Ortho. So all I'm going to do is drag this folder here. And now that that's there, we don't need this download folder anymore, so we can close this. And we'll just kind of make this full screen. So now, the other thing that people say, where do I open Ortho? Well, there's not really an exe in this main folder here. Where it is you have to go into the binary folder, scroll all the way down till you get to O, and you'll have the Ortho4XP application exe. So it's actually going to show a little icon here, so you'll see the difference between all the other files here. So let's open this up. Windows protected, yep, run it anyway. Now, when you first open Ortho, there's going to be this DOS box here. This is just the background thing that it runs, and it does take a second the first time you open it to get that main screen up. So we'll just give it a second here. There we go. So now this is the main um, page that you're going to be working with Ortho. It does look a little confusing, but we're not going to let that bother us. So this is, like I said, this is going to be the way that I set things up on here. So um, there are a couple things you have to set, even if you're just going to be, not changing any settings and downloading basic Ortho on here. So the base folder, I use this to select the folder where my Ortho main directory is. So in here, if we click on this, I'm going to go to my computer. My G drive is where we put the Ortho and just the main folder here. I'm going to select that folder. So I have G Ortho4XP. That's all I set this to. Now if we hit the wrench and screwdriver, this brings us into our settings window here. This is where we're going to mess around later, but we do have to change one thing in here even if you're not going to change anything else, which is where we have to set our overlay source directory. Now this is where Ortho is going to pull all the, where do I place buildings and stuff like that in your Ortho overlays. So where this is going to get set to is your XPlane folder, global scenery, XPlane 11 global scenery, and that's where you leave it. Do not click on Earth Nav data, just leave it like that. So this should look like your XPlane directory, global scenery, XPlane 11 global scenery. Now what we're going to do is write, apply, exit, and now that's all set. So the next thing we're going to change is the imagery provider, which you do have a bunch in here. And for the United States, basically a lot of things that, or places that I have used, Geo2, which is Google, seems to be the best provider. Now the zoom level, this is the image quality that you're going to have. So, if you're flying airliners, stuff like that, you might want to do a 15 or 16 because you're going to be at, 20, 30,000 feet and it'll look fine from up there. I am a low and slow, pretty much VFR flyer, so I build a lot of my tiles in 17, excuse me, and 18 is not really necessary for that. 17 does look pretty good. So we're just going to leave this on Google and zoom level 17. Now, where do you pick what tile you want to build? So if you hit the globe here, this is going to bring up your ortho map. So this is basically where you select which tiles you would like to build. And we're just going to find one here that's a small tile. So if we click, let's just see here. So we'll do this little piece of Long Island out here. This is going to have the Islip Airport that I had shown you in my Airport Environment HD installation video. So we'll start here. And so what do you do after this? Basically, if you double click any of these spaces here, create a box, it's not going to do anything. So what you have to do is you have to shift and click. So hold down your shift key and click your mouse, and that'll make this red polka dot box inside these boxes here. Now, if you want to say, okay, I'm going to leave my computer overnight, I want to download, 10, 20 tiles, you just hold shift and keep clicking to highlight, as many boxes as you want on here. And then, it'll download all these tiles in a batch. If you look here, batch build tiles, even if you're doing one tile, you still use the batch build. So what we're going to do, if you hold shift and click again, it gets rid of the boxes. So let's get rid of all these. And we're just going to deal with this one tile for right now. So if you're going to build tiles, this stuff up here at the top, this is not going to apply to anything unless you want to go in and delete a tile that you have done. But other than that, you're going to click Assemble, the vector data. We're going to triangulate the 3D mesh. We're going to draw the water masks, build the imagery, and extract the overlays. These are the first 5 steps are the ones you have to click. Read per tile config. This is if you went in and you wanted to have a special configuration just for this one single tile, which most people don't have to do. But once you have this selected, what you're going to do is you're going to hit batch build, and this will start downloading all the stuff for that airport there. So this does take a while. I mean, if you're doing, a full size tile, you might be, you know, depending on your internet speed, anywhere from 20 to an hour just for a single tile. It's not fast at all because it does have to download a lot of information here. So right now we're dealing with step one, which is building the vector data, basically finding where all the roads are, all the airports are, all the streams and rivers and waterways and stuff like that, is finding all that here. So while that's downloading, let's since this is just a basic thing for the beginning, let's just take a break here, and once this is done downloading, we will come back and show you how to get this actually into the sim. So we'll be back in a couple minutes. Alright guys, welcome back, and you can see here we finished this tile. It took us 9 minutes and 49 seconds to complete this. The way that you'll know that it's finished is step 4 should be extracting the overlays, and that should be a pretty quick process there. So what do we do from here? So basically now we're going to go back to our ortho folder here, and we're going to minimize this, drag this over to the side, and let's open a second folder here that we're going to be working with. And we're going to go into our XPlane 11 custom scenery folder. So if you look in your Ortho4XP main folder here, which we'll just click on here, where all your stuff is, you'll see we have 2 new folders here. One is going to be called our overlays, and one is going to be called the latitude and longitude, of the tile that we had built. So the way that I do this is I'll highlight what I built, I'll create a shortcut, take those shortcuts, drag and drop them into my custom scenery folder, and now I'm finished. So what what is this doing? So basically the shortcuts are leaving the girth of the tiles and the overlays in your external drive and only moving the shortcuts over. So when you load XPlane, XPlane will read these shortcuts saying, okay, I got to look on, your G drive or whatever your drive may be that you have ortho on. You could do this too if you're going to put this on the same drive. Just make a shortcut over if you want to do that also. So you do not need to keep the shortcuts in your Ortho4XP, so we can get rid of them. You can keep them if you want. You could see here the difference. These are only 1 kilobyte a piece, but if we look at these 2 folders here, you're looking at almost a gig and a half for those 2 folders. So that's the type of space you'll save if you have your ortho on an external drive or a separate drive on your computer. Now, when you load XPlane for the first time, what it's going to do is it's going to rearrange your scenery packs. So what is the scenery packs? The scenery packs is the order in which XPlane reads the stuff that you have added to it, along with some of the default stuff. So you can see in here all these landmarks and demo areas, global airports, everything except the airport environment HD, which we installed before. This is all default stuff from XPlane. So now, if you were to load XPlane, which I'll show you here in a second. So let's go and let's load XPlane. You don't even have to start a flight, you could just load it. We'll just resume last flight. I believe this airport is in that tile that we were at. And I'll just show you because I do see people with this problem. A lot of the problems people have is, hey, I created an ortho tile and I don't see any buildings, I don't see anything, everything's flat. I can see the imagery, but I can't see anything else. Well, this will solve that problem, this step here. Just give it another second here, it'll load up. So, this was not in that tile. So, let's go over to what is that? MacArthur. Hold on a second here, guys. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get an airport that's in that area. So let's go to KFOK. So KFOK. We'll just start there, just so we could see. Alright, so mine did create, or it did move the overlays. That's probably because I didn't have any ortho already in the scenery INI. You could see here how clear this ortho imagery looks. We can even zoom in. I mean, obviously, the lower you get, it does not create buildings over the ortho imagery. So that's another question a lot of people have. How come I see buildings but there is none? This is all stuff from ortho imagery that XPlane is not placing buildings over. So that answers that question for some people. But people do run into a situation where they'll create a ortho tile and there will be no buildings or anything like that. So let's see here if we can bring this back up. Not that one, not that one, this one. So, right. These two lines here in your scenery packs INI have to be at the bottom. So you see a little Y and Z before that. It should be placed underneath these here. And one way, well, there's two ways that you could do that. You can either highlight them, do a copy, do a paste, and then delete this line here. This is what would solve the issue that people are having where they're in an area and they see the tile, but they don't see any of the buildings or stuff like that. It has to be at the bottom, the way that the structure works. This is usually the case if people are running, HD mesh or something like that along with ortho. This is a pretty stripped down version of XPlane that I'm dealing with here, so that could be the reason why it even worked when it was at the top. Now, the other way you could do this is, let's say you didn't load XPlane and this didn't appear in here. Let's don't save that. So you could actually go and delete your scenery packs INI. All this stuff, when you load XPlane, will rebuild itself. So if we go back in and we load XPlane, you don't even have to load at an airport. You can just hit quit, go back into your scenery packs INI, and now you see it's at the bottom. Because it has this little Y and Z above it, it'll automatically put everything in alphabetical order. And you can see now the airport environment HD dropped from being at the top to down here because of the alphabetic way that it puts everything. So your ortho, it should be your overlays and then your tiles. Now if you go in, you build, let's say 300 tiles, there's going to be 300 lines that look like this. but the only thing that'll be different is your latitude and longitude here. Okay. So now, if you were just looking to download Ortho and install Ortho tiles, stop here. Don't go any further. But if you want to do some customizing for Ortho, that's what we're going to do now. So let's get out of here and we'll close this out. I'm just trying to get back to the beginning here. So, okay. So now we're back to XPlane and our Ortho. So let's go back to Ortho here. So this is everything that we just built in that one tile. This is all the imagery, all that stuff like that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the gear and wrench again, and we're going to change all these settings in here. Well, not all of them, but we're going to change the ones that I change and what I use to build my ortho imagery. The first thing we're going to change is this app smoothing. The default is 8. I use 32. And if you want to know what these things do, you could just click on these little boxes and they do show you a description here. So just for example, this is how much blur is applied to the elevation raster for the lookup of altitude over airports. The elevation is in a pixel size. So if you leave it on 8, 8 is a larger pixel than 32. So this gives you that nice, smoother elevation to airports, especially runways and airports that have curved runways. This doesn't give you that like real kind of curvature, like a rough curvature. This will smooth out that curvature on there. The next thing I do, road level is going to be 3. And we can move over here. Curvature tool, or curvature TOL. I changed this to 1.5. This is how much the mesh refinement is in pixels. So I changed that from 2 to 1.5. And then if we go over here, the mask width. This is for the water. 100 is the default. I changed this to 685. This is how much of the ortho imagery you're going to see going out from land into water. So if you watch my introduction video and you see that picture or that video clip at the end of me flying over Half Moon Bay and you see the waves and everything, this is what allows you to see that, is widening your water mask width. Now if we move over to DSF imagery, this is optional, but this is what I use. So if you look up here, our base zoom level 17. Now it looked pretty good, except when we were, really zoomed in at that airport there, it was okay. But high zoom level airports, what this will do, if you set this to true, this will build the areas around the airport in a higher zoom level, according to whatever you pick. So the cover extent here, this is in kilometers. It's set to 1 kilometer. I usually put it to 2 kilometers because if you're coming in on approach, 2 kilometers seems pretty good. And the cover zoom level 18, that's one step above 17. If you have a pretty good system, 18 or 19, you can change this to 19. I leave it at 18 because that's all I need. But you could change that to 19 if you wanted to. And if you're going to do 19, I mean, you could do 18 here and 19 under the settings. I mean, it's completely up to you. You have to try different combinations and see what works best for your system out there. Now, obviously, the higher zoom level that you choose, the longer it's going to take to download and the more it's going to put on your system when it's trying to load those textures because they are higher quality texture. So that's all I do in these two sections. And then down here, the custom dem, from default, it will use viewfinder panorama to get your elevation data, everything like that. What I find works best is NED1 if you're in the US, Canada, or Mexico. NED1 gives me the best elevation data Or if you're building stuff in the US, like you're going over, you're doing the Grand Canyon, you're doing the mountains in California, stuff like that. Ned 1/3 of an inch is great for that. But like I said, it's pretty much just a personal preference type thing. I use Ned 1 inch or Ned 1/3 of an inch in the US, which is where I'm based and where I build my ortho. So the only thing with this Ned 1, this does not hold. And what I mean by that, I will actually show you in a second. But everything else in here is set to where I leave it. So let me show you what I mean about this Ned 1 inch. So if you hit Write App, Apply, Exit, that'll save those settings. And now you can go in and build tiles. But if you exit Ortho and you come back in later and you say, okay, I want to build more tiles now, the Ned 1 inch is the only thing it doesn't save in this box here. So every time you open Ortho and you're going to build tiles, you have to remember to select this if you're in US, Canada, Mexico. If you're not in one of these areas, if you're overseas or someplace else, you could just leave this default. It's not really going to make much of a difference. Or you could try one of these here, the SRTMV3 or the ALOS. These say mostly worldwide. You will get an error if it doesn't work, and then you'll just have to pick a different one. But this viewfinder, this is what it uses default. If you don't care about a custom dem, you don't have to put anything in here. But if you're going to build tiles in the US, Canada, or Mexico, like I said, Ned 1, and you do have to remember to set this every time you open Ortho. So we'll do write app config, apply exit, and from this point, everything else is the same that we did before. So when you go in here and you do a shift click, you'll just do the first 5 here. And now it'll build this tile based upon the settings that we set in here. So you'll actually, when you load that and you get to the airport, you'll see that it's a greater zoom level at the airport. Your mask width at the coastline is going to be wider and bring those, waves and beaches and stuff looking a lot better. And your Ned 1 inch, if you're in the US, Canada, or Mexico, will make your elevation data just that much better. Obviously, along with the app smoothing and the curved TOL, all this stuff makes your ortho look just that much better. Now, if you're interested in learning how to make your ortho imagery look even better, that's going to be in part 2. We're going to go in and show you how to use a little program called XNConvert to mess with the JPEG imagery. If you're going to want to do that, don't download any ortho yet, because we do have to mess with the setting before you build the tile in these settings here. So if you were to download a tile, we're going to have to kind of start that tile over when we do the XNConvert if you wanted to do that. So this is pretty much part 1, showing you how to load a ortho, get that set up, build a tile if you just want to do it with default settings. And now I showed you my settings in here. So that's going to be it for part 1 here. If you guys have any questions or need to see anything else or need help with anything, leave me a comment, send me a message, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the bell so you get notified when I release more videos. All right, guys, we will talk to you soon. Take care.